can do this, we can do this, we can do this. All right. So we assume you've watched our initial thoughts on racism. So now we are going to actually dive into what racism actually is. So you need to understand that our initial thoughts back then
it's different from our thoughts now.
Now it's very, very, very different. Very, very different. So I think in order for us to make you sort of understand, or sort of understand racism, we need to give like the historical context to the whole thing, because racism is based heavily on history.
Exactly.
So you have to give you guys the historical context. So that's what this particular part will be about, just the history of it.
Way back in our history class, our teachers used to tell us, okay, I did not fully do history, I just did some parts of history, but from what we studied, they told us about the fact that the Europeans, aka British, they came and colonized us, took us away, and also the Americans also the same, and a whole lot. So it started from the slave trade, kings and queens selling off our great ancestors.
And it's a great point, because people forget that it's not as if the white people came and just
forcefully took us.
I think maybe some occasionally they'll forcefully take, but a lot of the time it was actually an agreement between the chiefs, where they give us some
nice stuff, valuable,
and they take away our labor. That actually affects us, because this labor could have been like the labor force that actually pushes
our economy
forward. Because you think about it, labor is an important factor of production.
Exactly.
You take away labor from it, you can't produce anything. So you could sort of find a correlation between that and how Ghana looks so underdeveloped now.
Yeah,
but it won't be that
true.
strong.
You really have a point. That's true.
So slavery. Yeah.
So they came, took most of the strong men and women away. Some died on the journey.
I hear some decided. The stories I hear of it's so brief. Some people, they knew they were going there to work, so they jumped off the ships. Like when the ship gets to the shore, they all just jump off the ship and like drown themselves.
Wow.
They said they would rather die than to work for the white man.
Wow.
Anytime I hear that, I'm like, God damn.
That's so hard.
Like that'd be hard.
That's hardcore.
Me, honestly, if it was me,
I doubt.
I won't kill myself. I won't kill. No.
I doubt.
Everybody will be like, okay, so we're going to jump on the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I catch you guys later. Deuces. I'll go. They'll jump and I'll just be there.
Anyways, so yeah.
So the blacks go there. They start working on these plantations.
Very great labor force for them.
Yeah, to build. They actually you could make an argument that racism and slavery and they working actually built, like, gave them a strong foundation.
Oh yeah, of course.
To give like America its very strong economy.
Yeah, I would say almost 90, not 99, but I'll say about 50% of most of their productive, works that were being done those days were from our manpower, were from our labor.
Exactly.
Were from our labor.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy. So the blacks work there. Then after some time, there's this rhetoric going around that, slavery isn't such a good thing anymore.
Exactly.
So from that point, there was a constitution written, and in the constitution, it declared that everybody in America should be a free citizen. But
there comes
the loophole.
Right after the constitution was written, right? Then they were like, okay, well, we can't actually forcefully enslave you guys.
Exactly.
But once arrested, that's it. You are virtually a slave now.
Exactly. So they sort of added like a clause.
Yeah, there was like,
everybody is free except
until
you're a criminal.
Exactly.
Or you're a refugee or something like a criminal. So that criminal clause was used to imprison a lot of like the black people.
And with any little
crime.
Not even a crime, dude. Just the slightest mistake you make.
Like that's so it was crazy. So I hear when they actually were free, when that clause was added to the law, a lot of the black people just went back to, it's like, hey, yo, we are free, yo, nigga, we free. They are going then no, the clause is using like, Charlie,
why did you spit
like
here?
we are back to square one.
Exactly.
So a lot of the manpower was taken back, and I think they worked after the civil war. I think there was a lot of underdevelopment, so they used all the black people they arrested to rebuild their economy. So it goes back to the point again that black people built the foundation.
Free. They were never free.
Like, yeah, they built the foundation for how America looks now. So
that's bad.
It's bad. So they were, arrested and used as labor after the Civil War. And I think right after that time, there was this movie, Birth of a Nation. You've heard of it, right?
Yes.
I think it's a movie which
it throws more light on, all the shady things that were going on.
Exactly.
Yes, and they actually emphasized on the fact that blacks were bad. In the movie,
exactly.
They made it seem as if black males were rapists.
Yeah,
and then
the scene where there's this white woman who would rather jump off a cliff and die than to have a black man rape her.
Oh my god!
Yo, that was great. That was crazy. Like the idea, I think the point of the director's idea was to give sort of an accurate description on how racism looked at that time. But lo and behold, what he failed to also like encapsulate was that particular movie would actually influence the minds.
That was the foundation.
That was like a foundation.
Racism.
Because white people will watch it and be like,
they be telling their kids, you see what they're doing?
You see these black people acting like very these guys are crazy. And they even mentioned there's this group in America called the KKK. They hate black people, they kill them. There's this thing they do as part of their ritual where they burn the cross. And they actually took the burning of the cross from the movie. From the Birth of a Nation movie. In the movie, the director just added that particular thing because he thought it was nice. It would be a nice look, in that scene. But the KKK people, they adopted it. So if you go back and look at the KKK videos and stuff, you will see that they always burn the cross. So that movie had a really huge, very big impact on it, Charlie.
And well, I guess that was the platform on which the whole racism up till now was built upon.
Yeah. So they were arrested, used as labor, blah blah blah. The rhetoric that blacks are criminals and animalistic, which came from the fact that from the movie on its own. So I think that movie spared sort of like a hatred for black people in white people. Because that movie really painted black people in a bad light. So, a lot of white people hated them. So that bred a lot of terrorism. Like, white people began to attack black people. You remember from documentary, it got to a point where, they were always killing.
For the least mistake.
They killed someone and they drew KKK on someone's
skin.
On someone's skin. So the hatred...
That was mad.
Really up.
But funny enough, I used to ask myself, okay, so what if our kings and queens were smart enough to not actually trade us? What would have happened to Americans now?
I don't think they would have been as developed as they are now.
And what would have been our state, our current state?
I think we would have been very developed because we've actually had some smart African people up there, in them countries. When you go back in history, you notice that there were a lot of black, intelligent, super intelligent black people who contributed a lot. So imagine if they had stayed in Africa.
Exactly, that's my point. If they had stayed here,
Africa,
would they have known what they knew then?
Okay, well,
you
can make an argument like that.
And then our current conditions and economical state as of before the whole slavery thing, Was it really well-to-do? Was it something to write home about?
I mean, we went to. I wouldn't say we were very underdeveloped, but in that time that was the time where we had the whole hierarchy thing where it's like you have a king, you have a queen. So obviously you'd have people in the higher rankings who are well to do, and you have the peasants, like people
that's
who
true.
are like they don't share a crowd.
They could care less what is
like,
happening.
So I think it's a part of every country's system. I think as at that time, a lot of countries in Europe were using that system, sort of like the king,
the whole monarchy,
the whole monarchy thing. So I think it was sort of a reflection on the whole world as at the time.
That's dope.
But I strongly feel that if we hadn't traded them off, I think maybe we would have been a bit more developed than we are now.
Exactly.
With the influence of the white people. Because if you minus the influence of the white people, there are some things which wouldn't have happened.
But
because
you never know
the white people. Okay, you never know.
You never know. Seriously.
You never know. Anything could happen.
Cause way back in the Roman Empire, dude, there was nothing as colonization, that sort of thing on their path, but they were still advanced. Even look at Egypt. They were, still in.
But Egypt, they were using slaves.
Oh no, I'm talking about the fact that they did not go through any form of colonization. So who would we have colonized?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. It's true.
But I think it cuts both ways. Both the pros and cons.
Then the terrorism of the black people, and I think during the whole, you realize that I saw this really interesting picture where it was like the U.S. continent from the south. They showed a point where a lot of black Americans relocated from the south part
and decided to disperse.
Exactly. And it was really interesting, and it was kind of true. It was exactly true, because when the slaves come, they are at the shores, the south. They are at the south, so that's where they were primarily located. So because of the terrorism, a lot of them moved to
seek refuge in other states.
And I think there's an idea that they moved because they were searching for greener pastures, money and shit. But in actual fact, they were running away from
the whole
terrorism from white people. And
oh boy,
that's crazy. And we then get to Jim Crow and segregation laws. This segregation happened in South Africa too.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so same thing happened there. And funny story about Jim Crow. So Jim Crow is actually a caricature. It's a cartoon version of a typical African. So it was started by this actor who decided to paint himself black.
He's white, but
he paints
himself. He wanted to be black.
So he paints himself as black, and he goes around acting. So he acts to white people, and in the acting, he shows how Africans behave. But then it's not an accurate description of how Africans behave. He paints them in a very bad image. So if you go to, so I realized that.
Okay. Not that he wanted to be black, but he just wanted to.
Exactly. Like I think he was a very bad person.
That's messed up.
To intentionally
paint Africans black.
So when you go to America, you realize that they have this thing against white men who paint themselves black. Yeah, they hate it so much. If you're a white man and you have a history where you've painted yourself black before, like like that's it for you. Like they pet you, they know they see you.
Wow.
They go shun you like Charlie. Wow. They go can't do your top guns blazing. So that was the whole Jim Crow. Jim Crow is a popular word. I'm sure. I mean, you've been hearing it. Even before, even when you hadn't gone deep into what racism was.
Yeah, there was lots of cartoons about them.
Yeah, Bob. So, Jim Crow, segregation laws, where they make, laws and policies to keep white people separate from black people. They sort of didn't want them to integrate together. So where there were laws which were like, okay, we want white kids and black kids to be in one school, people were fighting against them laws. They were pissed that they're like, nah. We don't want any integration. We want it to be separate. Blacks should be where they are. White people should be where they are. So that's the whole segregation bit of it. So I think right after, I don't say right after, but after that whole period began the civil rights movement, where you saw a lot of black people deciding that nah, we are not supposed to be treated this way. I no go bab, I no go agree. We can't be treated like this. So they began to fight for the basic right to be a human being. Like, think about it. I'm fighting for just the basic right to say that I'm a human.
Wow.
I'm not fighting for anything else. I'm not fighting for you to give me money. I'm not fighting for you to give me land. I'm just fighting for you to just accept me as a human being. Like, that's pretty messed up.
That's way beyond.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's way beyond.
And I think Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. There were a lot of people. Those are the two popular people that.
I think one of his quotes that I really like is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
Civil rights movement started. They started fighting for their rights, and I think sometimes some people feel they don't understand when they mention Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They sort of look at them and like, oh my God, like these guys are so cool. You know what I'm saying? But as at that time,
there was nothing cool.
There was nothing cool about them because they were criminals. They were actually seen as criminals back then. So here we are in the present thinking, everything was good back then, but they were actually branded as criminals back, way back then. And I think they made the whole criminal aspect of it look sort of good. So people weren't afraid to actually come out and fight. They didn't care if I'm going to be arrested.
Yeah, it was like, okay, being arrested is now the good thing. But being black, as a black person, being arrested is now the new good. Because we're all fighting for our rights over here, And me, I felt that was the perfect thing for them to do.
Exactly.
Because, if you don't fight for your rights, and dude, you were once slaves. Do you want to go back there again?
They took the power back. They took the power back, just like the word nigger. Nigger, white people used to use the word nigger as a sort of an insult, and the white people took that word and started using it amongst themselves. So they've actually taken the insult aspect of the word away from the white people, and the white people can't even use that word again. If you're a white man and you say nigger,
they will beat you to a pulp.
You can't use the word nigger. That'll be it for you. So the civil rights movement, all the fighting they did, it led to the creation of the Civil Rights Act.
Exactly.
Just for it was sort of Civil Rights Act. It was it's a good thing. It was a good thing that they did, but I mean, it didn't stop racism. Like,
not fully stop.
It didn't fully stop racism, but at least it did contribute in a way to making everything good. And I think right after
the Civil Rights Act.
Right after the Civil Rights Act came in, that was when the crime rate began to rise, like the use of drugs. Because you have to understand that if the black people who were fighting for their rights, they didn't have jobs, they didn't have money. They were going through a lot of traumatic issues. And what happens to people who go through those issues? Sometimes they resort to the use of drugs.
Just to forget about
it. So the white people went hard on crime, petty crime and drugs. So you could even be just caught with like a small possession of marijuana, possession of like a small ounce of weed, and they will give you like life in prison.
And that was when they also decided to emphasize on the fact that, look, we are white supremacists. They can catch or they can find a white dude with about 1 pound of drugs or coke, then sentence him to maybe 2 to 3 months,
Exactly.
But get a black dude, arrest a black dude with just an ounce of coke. That's it. You're now the new working force.
It was serious. Like, Oh God,
That
damn.
was so
crazy.
Harsh.
That was crazy.
harsh.
That was super harsh. That was super harsh.
They took advantage of that to clear a lot of blacks from the streets.
Exactly. And like, I hear back then they were equating a rising crime rate to the fact that they implemented the Civil Rights Act. So right after they implemented the Civil Rights Act, crime rates began to rise a bit. So the white people were like, you see, these people, they are right. Now see what they are doing. But what they failed to understand was that there was this generation called the baby boom generation. And it was us at that particular time that generation became adults. I think that generation was a bit more rowdy-ish, kind of.
Okay.
So that was actually the reason why the crime rates began to rise. It's a very big history, and sometimes you might overlook certain aspects. But in general, I think we all get the picture of how racism was historically. And even in politics, you did see. I think back then, presidential candidates, people who were running for office, they were using the war on crime, for votes. But the phrase "the war on crime" was sort of like a code for the war on black people, because most of the criminals they were arresting back then
we're all black
people.
Yeah,
so it's sort of like a coded word for we are bringing black people back. And they were using it a lot, and the media representation on it. They used to have these series, a lot of these reality shows, where it's like a police trying to arrest. It's like a show which shows how police work. So in the show, you see them arresting criminals and all of that. And most of the criminals they were arresting in the show were black people. So imagine people watching on TV, and you see most of the time on these shows they're arresting black people. The idea you'd have in your head is that this is the correct representation of how crime looks in America. Black people are the ones doing the crime a lot.
And
but that wasn't
arrested the most.
But it wasn't actually true. Based on some FBI statistics, it wasn't actually true. Majority of whites were actually committing crime. But so they took a lot of things out of context.
If you watch and you think that you don't actually side with what we said, or you have anything to add to it, you can comment down below, and we'll hit you up. We'll definitely hit you up. Also,
in case we missed anything, if you missed some really important points, you can just chip it in the comments below for everyone to see.
Don't forget, as usual, to like, comment, and subscribe.